It's the saddest of Bree-woo-woos as Jeff Jarrett got absolutely screwed and his quest for the AEW World Championship appears to be over.
Or delayed.
Bree-woo. Shed a tear and pour one out for Jeff Jarrett as I am Luco and DAD. This is Tempest and welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Dynamite. Please do press subscribe. Give us a little thumbs up, leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode. And if you're watching us live, then join the live chat, join the SWAF Nation, get your thoughts in about this show, and join a wonderful group of people who are talking about this show and talking about this review. Or if you want them read out on the air, you want those brilliant thoughts of yours read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support is the one to click. That is a link that you can click and send us a message and we'll read it out before the end of the show. Please do not tell me that Masha Slamovich is the TNA Knockouts champion. I am aware. I don't know what happens. I had a proper brain fart this morning, and I was like, "Oh
you
yeah."
Thought that she'd beaten Jordan Grace for the title.
Yeah, but Masha had beaten her previously, and I was like, and there was just a singles match they had. I was just like, because it was Grace's last match. I don't know what it was. I was on the train this morning. I was like, "Oh yeah," then she beat her for the title. Didn't even think to go and look, like to double check.
That's it. Everybody always says like, "Oh, it takes 2 seconds to Google," but if you don't think to Google the thing, if you don't think you need to Google the thing, then you end up with a situation like this.
Exactly.
And you know what? It's fine.
I made a mistake, but I'm owning up to it. I made an error, and it was a very silly error to make. But I will say as well, I'm not the only one who, there was a few people who was like, "Oh yeah, oh that's right, she's not the champion." Anyway, thank you very much for everyone who's told me that. I really do appreciate you feeding back to me. I genuinely do, because you should point out when I have made a mistake. I do make a fair amount of them. I'm a bit thick. But anyway, speaking of people making mistakes, Jeff Jarrett made a mistake on this episode of Dynamite because he, last week, challenged Claudio Castagnoli to a match on Dynamite, and should he win, he will get a shot at Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. You and I theorized on this show, I don't think Jeff's going to win that match.
No. Bit soon?
Yeah, a bit soon. But also probably at the right time, because we don't want to do a whole year of this story. But, it could go either way. Mm-hmm. But we thought MJF might get involved. As it turns out, it was the Death Riders that got involved. I quite enjoyed the match, actually. I thought the action was pretty good between the two of them. But it kind of all kicked into gear in the final moments of this, because Wheeler Yuta came out for a distraction. We had a sharpshooter by Claudio reversed into a sharpshooter by JJ. Then Wheeler Yuta slides in a chair.
I don't know how I feel about that. He's not JJ. He's Double J. And I know that's the same thing. But you said that and I went, no, that's wrong.
Yeah, I know. As I said out loud, that is right. It's because I just write JJ in my notes because it's quicker that way. When I was doing my notes for Morbius, I just kept writing down Morb.
Morb? Well, that's because it's Morbin time.
Exactly. It was easier for me to write down Morb than it was Morbius.
Yeah.
So Double J, he's got the sharpshooter on. Wheeler Yuta slides in a chair. The referee then gets distracted by Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio swings the chair at Jarrett, and you're like, I've seen TNA, I know how these finishes go. Sets up for the stroke, but Jon Moxley slides into the ring and hits Jarrett with the, what's he call it now? It's not the paradigm shift anymore?
It's either the paradigm shift or the Death Rider.
I'm guessing it's the paradigm shift then, because the group is called.
It
was always Paradigm in AEW,
I was always
but a
told that it was the Paradigm Shift in AEW and the Death Rider in New Japan. And then people started telling me that those were different moves, that just the like snap DDT thing is the Paradigm Shift, and when he lifts them up and then drops them, that's the Death Rider. But that's simply not true, but I think they've changed that. I don't know what it's called. I'm calling it both.
He hit him with a double arm DDT.
Fine. And he hit him with the dirty deeds.
And then Claudio hit a series of neutralizers. And after each one, I was like, I'm ready for this Jeff Jarrett roll-up. Shock 1, 2, 3 here. But no, hit him with 3 neutralizers, and he pinned him.
The worst, the last one, I think, was the worst neutralizer I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's the Kane pedigree.
Yeah, it's the let me take this on my knees. This front bump. No. So, what are we thinking here? Because I'm kind of like, I'm in two minds about this, just in the sense that this played out probably the best that this could, I think.
Yeah.
As we theorized on the show last week, Jarrett gets screwed, doesn't win, and then maybe some interaction afterwards, which we'll get to. And maybe it's just because this was a bit of a Death Riders heavy episode. But like I watched this match and the match was fine. Like it wasn't a bad match by any means, but the finish just came and my eyes just glaze over at this point. I feel my entire nervous system shut down when the Death Riders are all on screen at the same time.
I think it doesn't help, you know, and we're sort of being a dead horse here because I think we talked about this on a lot of episodes, but I think what doesn't help is that the actual World Championship storyline isn't lighting my fires either. So I've kind of got two concurrent storylines where both guys are gunning for the AEW World Championship, and I'm not into either of those stories, which in turn kind of makes me not into... Because Moxley had this promo later on where all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can get on board with this. I love this idea of like, I don't need to show you the AEW World Championship. I am the AEW World Championship. It is not a belt. It's not a prop. It is a feeling. It is and I was like, I can get behind this as a concept, but I'm not into either of the two like main challengers right now.
I'm not into like the top 3 challengers because you just throw like Jay White is in this mix as well, and they're messing with him on this show, which we'll get to. And you know, I don't want to come on this show every week and beat the dead horse because everybody knows what the deal is with these Death Riders. We know how we feel about the Death Riders. Until there is significant change in direction of the story, I think we know how we'll feel. But that being said, like, I don't know what else we're meant to do than just come on and be like, yeah, it's still bad. Yeah. When they refuse to do anything about it. And if the show is built around these Death Riders, like this week's episode was, I think it reflects very poorly on the episode.
To give the segment some credit, one of the things we said about last week's episode was that crowd did not seem all that into Jeff Jarrett when he was doing his promo. They weren't really cheering and popping for him. They did more in the MJF segment, but in Jarrett's own segment, it wasn't really getting over. And I'd said, like, I think that's where the promo that they had 2 weeks ago, sort of like the proof that maybe didn't work. But this crowd were into JJ on this episode.
I thought this was a better than average crowd.
This crowd were very pro Jarrett during the match, and they were pro Jarrett in the beatdown afterwards. You know, very sad to see him lose this match. So the segment did work for this live crowd. And then MJF came out afterwards and basically said, like, he's going to say something to him, but instead throws out the microphone and attacks him. And then grabs a different microphone to say that I respect my elders, which is why I won't say that I told you so. So we can continue on with this Jeff Jarrett MJF storyline, which will likely pay off towards Revolution. I
imagine they'll have like a Texas Death Match at Revolution.
Or it's a Grand Slam, you know, if we want to get there any quicker than that. And yeah, like it's good, but it's not like lighting my world on fire right now. But I will say, like, the Hangman stuff was the only thing that really like grabbed me on this episode, and that was about 15 seconds.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
And I was completely in agreement on that. And if the best thing on the show is a 10-second bit of a guy just teasing a few things, that's probably not a great episode of TV.
Yeah.
And I didn't come away from this being like, oh, that was horrible. Look at all these terrible matches and bad promos and whatnot. But it was just like a 5 out of 10 monotone episode of Dynamite. And some of the matches are good, some of them are just fine, whatever, and we'll get to it all. But again, to just pick this Jeff Jarrett and Jon Moxley and MJF thing, you know, as it's the topic of the moment, if this MJF Jeff Jarrett thing and this segment in particular just played out like on maybe last week's show, I think you look at that and go like, that's a really good 5th best thing on the show.
Yeah.
It complements an otherwise great show by just adding a little bit more to it. It's not going to be the number one thing people are going to care about, but it's going to be a good addition.
Yeah.
But on this episode, when it is the only thing that you're given to maybe care about, it falls that much more flat. And it's a shame, you know? Like, I think... especially when you're staring down the barrel of MJF and Hangman Page that I imagine we're getting to next, and I so much rather would get to that.
Yeah.
It's like I want to get to the fireworks factory.
I kind of get what you mean, because what this episode felt like, because I didn't think this was a bad episode of Dynamite. Like, this was a good episode of Dynamite. It had good matches. I think the thing that surprised me the most was Toni Storm was not on the show, which I think is a massive error. Like, I think Toni Storm should have been on this show. And I actually think the show really needed something like a Toni Storm on there, like an appearance by her. But what it felt to me was like if you have a 6-week build for a pay-per-view and this is show 3, where you were just like, right, well, we can't do too many hot angles because we've still got 4 weeks left before the pay-per-view. So we just kind of need to go out there and just do some stuff, and then we'll do the hotter angles next week. And that's grand, I guess. But
that's a really subpar way of looking at things.
But it just means that you're left with a show that's like... Yeah, it was fine. Yeah. Like, it's fine, but like it's the thing that made me go like, ooh, was like 15 seconds worth of the show.
Yeah.
I didn't come away hating this episode, but the thing I was most interested in was the thing that had as little focus as possible on it. And I think the thing that people were really hyped for coming out of Collision was Toni Storm.
Yeah.
And no Toni on this show, I think, is a mad choice.
I think you can go all the way down the roster. Everything that's been going on. Like, if you look at the last 8 days now, since the last week's episode of Dynamite through the most recent episode of Collision, and you look at all the things that have really captured people's imagination, and it's the Kenny and Will partnership at the start of last week's show. It's the Hangman deal with Christopher Daniels. It's the Hurt Syndicate getting the tag titles. It's Harley Cameron really starting to break out. It's Toni Storm revealing this was all a master plot. Not a single one of those things was a focus on this week's show.
Yeah, like Kenny and Will's about the only one, but even then, it's an angle they did 2 weeks ago, which again brings me back to that. This feels like it is week 3 of a 7-week build for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I completely agree that I'm sure that's how they're looking at it, but I look at the AEW talent pool that they've got, and an amount of time on Dynamite is like, that's the coveted space, because if something happens on Rampage, no one sees it. If something happens on Collision, maybe you hope that it gets shared around and people get eyes on it, but generally, as it's happening, no one's watching it. You need to do big things on Dynamite if they're going to be a big thing. And to just have an episode of TV wasted, like, yeah, sure, there'll be another one next week, but I do not understand why you need to do, necessarily, 3-4 big angles last week, none this week, when you could either split the difference and do some of those this week, or maybe just do better. I don't know why we couldn't have gotten a bigger angle to set up anything else on Grand Slam or the direction we're headed for Revolution.
Totally.
I don't know why we couldn't have used this week to, if you're gonna do it, try harder, but give Cope the mic and just make me care. He didn't speak after getting killed last week after the main event. And it just felt like this was a copy and paste maintenance show to get us a little bit closer to the next pay-per-view. And yeah, you can put it on and watch it. And I did not come away from this show like seething mad because something happened. But I was just kind of baffled that the main event is just a cold TV match. Just a match that has no setup outside of a 4-way on the previous show. And very little else on this show was furthering anything. If ever there was a skippable episode of Dynamite, this was it.
Felt like those post-Punk episodes of Collision.
Yeah.
Which, like, every week, like, when Dan and I were doing those reviews, we would just go like, yeah, it's a fine show. It was a completely fine show. Not a lot happened, but fine show it was. That's all it was. It was the first Dynamite where I was like, fine show.
Yeah. And to somebody who only watched WWE circa 2011 to 2019, the 2010s period of WWE, fine might sound great. But we've seen better than fine, and we must demand better than fine.
Well, let's see what you thought. Let us know in WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of your comments above the $5 mark. Before we get to the end of the show, Jimmy G has been a member for 40 months in a row, said it's been a while since I've caught you live. Find it funny how Claudio needed help with Jeff Jarrett. Why do you think the Hangman was looking for Swerve?
15. So I was hoping this would be the lead, but you can never do that because there's so much else of the show we need to get through. But this is the thing I want to talk about for like just a half hour straight of like, what could it be?
Yeah.
Just one little intriguing nugget of a tease. I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know which direction this is going to go. And just starting to think of theories is getting me like just amped up for this.
We'll get to that segment when we get to it and see how we're going on. Cameron here says, howdy gents, want to follow up on my chat last week and make a correction because maybe I was too brash. What I meant to say was less the narrative AEW is cold, more so I don't understand why it's cold when it's been so consistently good. Another banger show. Onto the show proper. I enjoyed it. Really like how they're using AR Fox again. Hope he can continue some upward momentum. Jeff Jarrett MJF storyline is odd, but I'll admit that I'm enjoying it so far. Main event was great, and the Omega Ospreay Callis stuff is peak. Believe it or not, I think I might be getting back into this Death Rider storyline. I don't know, there's something about that promo from Mox and Claudio and Yuta matches that hooked me in this week. But the Callis family should be the main event level. Yeah.
I'm glad you got more out of it than I did.
I know,
for sure.
I agree. And as I said, like I really liked that Moxley short promo that we got there. It was like a clip from a much longer interview segment they've got on YouTube. But what I saw there, I was like, man, if it was this, I could probably get back into this story.
That's it.
Because like this feels different as opposed to you are just regular heels.
Someone sent it to me on Blue Sky or Twitter or something this week, and I watched it and went like, well, yeah, if it was this all the time, I don't know if we'd be in this trouble, And I'm sure it's a bigger problem than just, the what Moxley says in promos being different. There's a much bigger picture to look at. But the difference is it's a total disconnect from what they're doing there and what they're doing on TV. I was always someone who really loved being the elite and everything, but at a certain point, what happens on being the elite can only be taken into consideration a certain way,
of course,
to what actually plays out on TV. If it matters, then you see it on TV, and that's why we got a little clip of this to be like, hey, look, this is what we're going for. Maybe give this a shot, but I need to see Moxley actually doing this. I need to see that be the direction of the storyline other than just a mission statement that they sometimes don't even follow.
As for the question of like, why is the company or why does the company feel cold? It's kind of it's
a whole podcast on just that.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a hard one to answer as well. And almost the simplest way to kind of put this, and I'm not saying that this is stone cold fact or anything like that, but historically there can only be one hot wrestling product. And WWE right now is the hot wrestling product. And when that is the hot wrestling product, it's kind of like no one else can really feel like a hot wrestling product either. There is only so many hours for a wrestling fan to watch everything. What I find fascinating about sort of like so it kind of hit me while I was watching this show, because the main event was Mone and Yuka Sakazaki, right? And Mercedes Moné's out there with the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Women's Championship.
Whoop.
And I'm looking at that belt, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be mad if Dynamite like had a main event that was Mercedes Moné versus Nina Samuels and it is for the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship.
Sure.
And I'm like, I mean, they'll never do it because the argument is like, well, what about the casuals? And then I'm sort of thinking about it, I was like, well, anything else they've tried hasn't brought them in either. So maybe you should just do matches like that and just sort of cater to the audience that you have. Kind of in a similar way, like going by like the Netflix metrics that they've been releasing about Raw, it's getting the same viewership it was on USA Network. So this idea that all of these casuals are going to be coming in aren't really coming in for wrestling. So you may as well just make a show that appeals to the audience that you have. And I'm like, well, yeah, put on Nina Samuels versus Mercedes Moné, because I guarantee you'll do the same rating than if you'd have done the Mercedes Moné versus Yuka Sakazaki. Like, it's just like, it's the way the kind of wrestling is at the moment.
First, Netflix metrics is bars. Second, to answer the kind of broader question, I think if I had to boil it all the way down to one thing, they're not the babyface company anymore.
That also doesn't help.
The company of AEW is not a babyface in the eyes of the fans. If you are a diehard fan of AEW, I'm sure that doesn't apply to you. And
because they'll always be the babyface.
Yeah. And to me, I don't look at WWE as the babyface company, but that's how the public are seeing them right now. Because again, they're super hot on Netflix. They've got these big stars. Everybody is
everywhere.
Packed buildings. Everybody's really happy to be there. The vibe is energetic and excited and everything. And that was what AEW was. And when you have that atmosphere, people buy into everything. People want the product to be good. Even if something is so-so, they will cheer it on to get it to a higher level. And if you don't have that kind of fan involvement and fan dedication, then any of those like middling could work, could not work things, they all end up not working. And so instead of a full show of things that worked, maybe half of them will work. And you just end up with a totally disconnected crowd. And again, we won't beat a dead horse, but it all starts with one guy. I'm sure it all happens backstage, whatever. But in terms of the public perception of the company, it goes wrong at one point, and it's never recovered from that because the company's image was damaged.
Yeah.
You know, I think they can work their way back from that, but that is a long road, and you need consistency. And I don't think they've had that.
Well, that's it. And it's like, it could be a long road. So I sent an email into Gorilla Position. Shout out to Gorilla Position Podcast. It's a wonderful podcast that I do recommend people listen to. Because they kind of had this, like, James and one of the other hosts was being like, I think TNA is the second biggest promotion in America right now. And I sent him, I was like, that is frankly a mad take to have, and here is why. And we got like a very nice conversation about sort of like, here is why that is almost actually factually incorrect. But in that email that I wrote to them, I was like, look, there was a period of time when if you'd have said, oh, TNA will sell 4,000 tickets for a pay-per-view, you'd have been like, no way, because this company can't sell 100 tickets for anything. But now they are at a period of time where they can sell 4,000 tickets for a pay-per-view. And like by all accounts, the advances for things like Slammiversary are really good as well, because they are currently like, they are peanuts on the up, which they haven't been for quite some time. But that took them 15 years to kind of get back to that point. Yeah. Like it's been a long time for TNA to get to a point where 4,000 tickets can be sold for a pay-per-view. And it was, 15 years might be a stretch, but it's certainly 10. Like in 2015, no one was saying they'll sell 4,000 tickets for a show.
Absolutely not.
So it's not like AEW, even if AEW have a massively hot angle, even if this Death Riders thing was like on fire right now, I think they're doing the same level of ticket sales they're doing right now. I think they're doing the same level of viewership they're doing right now, because it is not going to be something that gets solved overnight or in 1 week or 2 weeks. It could take years.
It could. And to look on the positive side of things, we are currently living in an era where people are more willing to pay to go and see pro wrestling than they ever have been.
So that's that Netflix crowd.
I mean, you can cheer for literally spending more money than ever before on one single ticket. But I mean more so, you are willing to go out and support a TNA because you love it. You're willing to go out and support your local indies. You're even an AEW, people are going to go out there. Because, again, you look back 10 years ago, and there was one company that would draw a crowd. So to see that is encouraging, and it means it's not impossible. You just need to put in the consistent work on your end. And we've seen it from time to time. Again, not to beat a dead horse, I think we should have gone in a very different direction going into All In and then afterwards. And I'm not saying that would fix everything, but it's been a very difficult, inconsistent watch since that show. And before that, we were like, this is the best period that we've had in years. You know, people will say that you're looking back on things with rose-tinted glasses and everything, but every week we were like, oh, they're really going for this new TV deal. What a great time. Dynamite is this awesome deal with the Owen Hart Cup and Danielson and Hangman on TV and the hour-long MJF Will Ospreay match and blah, 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 blah. The run from like Revolution, or even before that with Sting and Darby, all the way to All In was great TV. Consistency means you have to do it consistently. And I don't think they've done that.
I think they are a company right now that even if they had done a different direction for All In and they had done Swerve Hangman, they'd have sold the exact same number of tickets.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they would have done the same level of TV ratings. And that was the point I was making. Was like, you could put any old main event on this show and you would draw the same viewership. Kind of, going back to TNA, that was TNA when they were on Spike. TNA could put any Albolics on there and they would draw the same 1 million viewers.
Yep.
Every single week.
What a time.
It was the worst pro wrestling show on TV, which was remarkable because WWE wasn't very good either.
No, there was WWE ECW at the time.
Exactly.
Or original NXT.
It was a terrible time to be a wrestling fan, but no matter what they did, 1 million viewers would tune in. They could have Rob Van Dam on the show, they'll do 1 million viewers. They could have Christopher Daniels on the show, it's 1 million viewers. No matter what they did, it was 1 million viewers. And I think AEW is in the the similar position now. No matter what they do, they get the same viewership. No matter what WWE do, it's the same viewership. That's the wrestling world that we're in at the moment. So yeah. But anyway, that's we said that's a whole other podcast, and we did one. We dedicated sort of about 15 minutes to that. But this show kicked off with Will Ospreay taking on Brian Cage. Callis, before the match, as the match started, showed up on the screen that Kenny Omega had been taken out backstage. Which eventually didn't really play into much of anything because he came out anyway. But they had a good match. Will Ospreay wrestling Brian Cage is always going to be a fun time, and this was a fun time. I particularly enjoyed Will diving off the barricade and Brian Cage just catching him in a suplex, then just walking around.
Well, you got to put it over even more because he does like the jump onto the barricade and like wibble wobbles, steadies himself, turns around, kind of wobbles again, and then does his dive, only to be caught in a suplex position by Brian Cage. It's not going to go down as one of those moments of the year, but it's one of the most impressive things that I've seen in 2025 thus far.
So Cage sort of walked around to that and, slammed him into the tables. We had a middle rope F5, but Will got his foot on the ropes, and then Lance Archer pushed it off the ropes, and the referee was like, hey, you can stay there if you want, though.
You can't do that.
And then they had some friendly fire between Cage and Archer, and Ospreay hit the Stars Clash for the win. I enjoyed it.
It's like his 5th finisher now.
Yeah, great. Good.
Yeah.
Make the moves mean something.
Absolutely. I don't know when the last time he won with an Os cutter is, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls one out of his bag.
He's going to have a match with AR Fox and win with it.
Yeah.
Archer attacked him after the match, and then Kenny Omega's music hit. He ran out to make the save, but unfortunately, the numbers game as Takeshita and Fletcher appeared from behind, and they hit stereo tombstones, and then they did their pose, and it was almost like someone from production was like, you've hit your cue too early. Do it again.
This did just keep going, didn't it?
So they did that, did the pose, and the music played, and then they just beat them down some more, and then they did their pose and the music played, and I'm like, all right, cool. Ospreay covered Omega to sort of stop the beat down.
This went on for so long, and they kept showing, like, they do the camera angle where they're filming the action on the opposite side from the stage so you can see the screen and everything, and I was like, is Ibushi about to come back or something and make the save? And we'll do like a little love triangle thing here. The Golden Brothers will really get put together. It didn't happen, but it was another one of those where it's like, well, surely there must be a reason for this. No, okay.
Yeah.
Odd.
I think it was a beatdown.
I'm not even saying I necessarily want Ibushi back in the mix at this point, but with the shot that kept going, I was like, someone's making the save. Surely.
So here is, I would say, the thing that kind of like really... it's grabbed me a little bit, and man, sort of made me like sit up in my chair to be like, hey now. So Renee is backstage, wants to do an interview with Swerve Strickland, and Hangman Page kind of like storms past her, and he goes into Swerve's locker room, looks around, he's not there, and he storms back out because he can't find him, and he bumps past MJF, and they sort of have a little words, and then he walks off, and then MJF cuts a promo on Jeff Jarrett. But it's the Page bit that I'm really like... I've got 2 thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is, man, this is so cool. Like, what do you want to say to him? Where is this going to go? And my other one was like, Swerve came out later. Why don't you just find him then?
There's always that.
You were not looking hard enough, Adam. He was right there. He was out in front of a lot of people. A lot of people saw this. Well, his music played and everything. Did you go home? But the idea of Hangman Page looking for Swerve Strickland after what happened with Christopher Daniels last week made me like... I think I even pitched in 3 count that they would do a tag match together this year. And like I don't know whether we are going to get that, but is Hangman Page now going to start like atoning for his sins? Like I don't know where we're going now.
That's it. Honest to God, I love Hangman Adam Page so much. This is what I want my wrestling to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because this guy, with one little tease, has made me go, oh my God, well, he could do this or this could happen. Yeah. And I have no idea. Is he going to go and apologize to Swerve? Is he going to show that? Is he going to realize that he can't accept that? That there is too much hate in his heart to let go of that? Is he going to apologize and Swerve will be like, you shouldn't have let your guard down, and maybe Swerve does a heel turn and show, no, I'm the most dangerous man in AEW. I did that. I'd do it again because look where it's got me. You could go any direction with it, and I have no idea what it will be, the moment I see Swerve or Hangman Page at any point in next week or whenever, I will be on the edge of my seat a millisecond after they are seen.
I think Hangman makes the save next week. Ricochet beats Swerve, or even Swerve beats Ricochet. But the post-match is Ricochet gets the scissors, has him dead to rights, about to stab him. Hangman Page runs down and makes the save.
You know, Swerve Strickland did say that he's not done with Bobby Lashley, who's now a tag team champion.
Okay,
maybe Swerve gets a bit of backup here.
Because honestly, at the end of this one, I was like, I think AR Fox is going to turn heel next week and align with Ricochet, which I still think could happen.
Yeah, could well do.
Yeah. But so maybe that's what it is they then start to beat down Swerve. They get the scissors. Page runs down for the save. And you have Swerve and Hangman versus AR Fox and Ricochet.
I had not considered this possibility, but this is so exciting. I get the same feeling talking about this that I am getting currently from just talking in the office about who's going to win the Royal Rumble. You know, that unpredictability, but you hope for the best possible scenario, but you're trying to think of this and that. Oh, be still my heart, Hangman Page. Yeah. My pink pony girl. I love this man.
It was awesome. It was a really, really cool moment, and it makes me want to see the show next week because I want to see what the next chapter of that is. We got a recap of Hobbs and Big Bill from...
Well, hang on. There's the MJF portion of this that we also need to get into proper.
I guess we can do.
Because I thought this was also not necessarily just as intriguing as that. First of all, MJF made reference to Kevin Owens' old shoot interview where he called Claudio half man, half horse. So I appreciate you, MJF, for watching the same media that I did as a youngin'. But MJF and Hangman have their stare down, and Hangman walks off, and you just hear MJF under his breath just kind of go like, "Oh, Hangman did nothing wrong, but if I so much as breathe the wrong way," and then he gets cut off and asks about Jeff Jarrett, and we go on with the segment, whatever. But that little morsel, the MJF
character right there.
That is the MJF Hangman Page preview of just like, you can burn a man's house down and they will still love you, but I leave because I've torn my body to shreds or whatever, and I can't wait for these promos. And I wasn't quite sure how MJF's character would play into it. I thought he would just be a great heel foil for Hangman Page going through this character development. But if this is going to be MJF going, "No, I hate you because you represent them," sign me up.
Oh, yeah, we got a recap of Hobbs and Big Bill from Collision, and Powerhouse Hobbs revealed that he wasn't cleared this week, but he will be back soon to get his revenge on Big Bill. And it was a shoot, according to Fightful Select. And apparently a lot of the show had to be rewritten because Hobbs was going to be a major factor on this show. And maybe that's why the show kind of felt like it was missing something. But apparently, they had to do a major rewrite on this show to factor in the fact that Powerhouse Hobbs could not do anything.
It makes sense, and it is a shame because I do think it would have been much better with him. I think Powerhouse Hobbs has been one of the breakout stars of AEW this year, and he has not shown me at any point that he's not ready or not the guy or not taking advantage of this opportunity. I want to see more of it. I want to be along for the ride. It's been a good one so far.
We had Renee interviewing Ricochet, and they announced that Swerve would be banned from ringside for his match with AR Fox. And this was fun.
Yeah.
This was very, very fun.
Before you get to the actual match, I know he's been doing this, but Ricochet saying that AEW is bullying him for putting him in this match. Something about just the use of that word, I don't know why, it felt like a very just loaded word that says everything you need to know about his character. Yeah. He's got this just inferiority complex that he thinks that he is being bullied by the big mean dudes upstairs, and I love that he's not your average heel. I love that he had a dorky ass shirt, tie, and glasses on when he turned heel on Swerve.
Yeah.
Because no one is doing that. And I said it at the time, but when he left the ring and was like, like he's Randall from Recess or whatever, I was like, this is one of my favorite characters in wrestling right now.
Yeah.
And I did not think that was going to be the case when it came to Ricochet at like the start of the C2.
Just got someone trying to correct me there. Said it was a New York Minute, Luke. That segment came later, actually. We'll get to that in a minute. It's led into a very fun match between Ricochet and AR Fox. Fox had this wonderful sequence to lead to the 450 near fall, where it's like, oh, this is why a lot of people put you up as like, he's one of the real unsung heroes of the indie scene from like, the mid 2000s stuff. Didn't even get a shine in TNA, the of AR Fox.
His shine was in Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
Which was great.
And this was great. This kind of maybe was like, I just really, really enjoyed a lot of this. And I thought this was really, really fun. And Ricochet then started to get into more of his heel role. Like AR Fox had him lifted up. He was grabbing at the ropes, couldn't quite get them. So he then started grabbing at the referee, hit a recall for a near fall, and then hit the Spirit Gun and Vertigo for the win. A thumbs up match.
I would say this was a mild thumbs up.
Yeah. Like a lot of wrestling on the show. It didn't have a lot of heat.
No. And this is tough. There were a lot of matches on this show where it was like, we know the heel's going to win, and the babyface isn't necessarily someone who's super hot or anything like that. I found this match very interesting because this, I believe, is Ricochet's first singles match since he's turned heel. He was in the Casino Gauntlet.
Yeah.
But this is his first proper showing as what does heel Ricochet look like in the ring. And he's different. He does less. He does heelish things like grabbing at the referee and stuff like that. But as soon as he turned heel, I was like, I love the character, but I'm curious about the style, because inherently he has a babyface style.
Big dives, big flips.
Yep. He's been phasing out the flips and everything. He introduced the Spirit Gun and everything. I think that's a good move. But I was just like, I don't know. I need to see something. There's like a little ingredient missing from the in-ring style, I think.
He teased doing a big dive, then didn't, do the fans. And the fans trying to ball at him because, bald men don't do dives, I guess. During the commercial break of this, though, he hit the people's moonsaults.
He sure did.
Like, this was during the commercial. I'm pretty sure this was during the commercial break. But he did the whole Rock deal, kicked the arm, looked left and right, did a little taunt, ran the ropes, ran the other ropes, stopped, and did a standing moonsault. And I'm like, all right, buddy. You did the people's moonsault, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If that's your prerogative, you go for it.
He then grabbed the scissors to stab at AR Fox, but Swerve showed up and beat him up around ringside, but then Ricochet used AR Fox as a human shield to escape. It was like holding him like he was a hostage, like dragging him up the ramp to escape. A good angle to build the match for next week.
I thought the post-match was fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought Swerve showed such fire, and that's not new by any means. But I just look at him and go like, he is a cut above in terms of star power from virtually everyone else on the show. Like, there is the top tier of guys, and he is in it. And he exudes an aura when he's on screen. I know that word is overused these days, but he has it. And it was a fantastic beatdown. And again, like I said, as soon as you get out of the match bit and go right into the post-match, the Ricochet character holding AR Fox hostage with a pair of scissors, fantastic.
Yeah.
Could not have enjoyed the post-match more.
Renee has got a series of interviews with Claudio and Mox, and we got a clip of one of those here. And this is where they talked about the AEW World Championship, and Renee asked him, was like, it's in a briefcase, like the fans don't get to see it. And Mox had this great line, was like, you don't need to see the belt. Like, what, you want to see a prop? You want to see people waving it above their heads like they've won something? No, I am. You get to see the championship all the time, because I am and always have been the AEW World Championship. That is a great promo from Mox, where I got way more from his character than I have done from, probably since they started doing this angle.
Mm-hmm. It's been a very long time since there was just a promo segment that was this good.
Yeah.
Also, I love that apparently it is canon that Pac must always be wet, so they just keep him in a sauna when he's not fighting people. In full gear, he's just sat in a heated, sweaty, steamy room.
I thought it was weird, though, that... like Renee's doing these interviews.
Yeah,
and it has
been weird, isn't it?
It's been established on TV that they are married.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was something that Sat and I said, that it's strange that Renee hasn't said anything about this. Even if the first week after the Death Rider stuff, if like at the end of an interview someone came up to her and be like, hey, what's going on? Yeah. She'd be like, I'm really sorry. He's his own man. I can't have this impact my work. I'm just going to go at business as usual. I think that covers everything. But when it's not covered, I do just think it's fucking odd, pardon me, Mod Mother, to not just go like, you talk about this over dinner, surely.
Surely it's come up in conversation. Surely you've asked him about this before.
Yeah,
like,
you know the answers to these questions, Renee.
Why is the belt in a briefcase, John?
Yeah.
Then we had the New York Minute Chat, where Jericho has got a new movie coming out called Dark Match.
Yep.
It's a good title.
Yeah?
Yeah. It looks cheap as all get out, but I'd probably give it a watch. And they talked about that Big Bill learned something from the learning tree. He understands the lesson that Jericho taught him. And he said, well, he didn't quite take out Powerhouse Hobbs. There's still room for learning. And it's going to be Jericho and Brian Keith taking on the Outrunners on Collision.
Swell. My takeaways from this are, it appears that time is short for the learning tree, or at least Big Bill in the learning tree. Cracks are showing.
Enzo Amore is coming back.
You get to like the end of the segment and like Jericho goes like, thanks guys. And does like just a grimace in the direction of Big Bill, which means free Brian Keith.
Tempest, come on now. He's stuck there for a little while.
No.
He's the new Sammy Guevara.
No.
He's just going to bounce from group to group.
He's too good for this. He can go to a different group.
I mean from Jericho group to Jericho group. It's going to rebadge it, you fool, but he's going to be still in that group.
I don't want it. My other takeaway from this is Jericho really thinks he's funny.
Yeah, well, that's because people have told him that he's funny for 20 odd years now. Because he did some really funny promos in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s and early 2000s, yeah, he's a sharp-witted young guy and everything. But he called Alabama like the Crimson Toad instead of Crimson Tide.
Oh, okay.
And I flashed back to like a few years ago where it's like, remember the Pinnacle? And his joke was just that he called it the Pineapple.
Yeah.
And then he called MJF my jerk-off friend over and over again, and no one ever reacted. Because he's not funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doing comedy promos with this guy at this point, I think, is a bit of a waste of time, but I'm not his biggest fan.
We then got Jay White versus Wheeler Yuta. Yuta's doing the I have till 5 referee gimmick, which I got a massive pop out of me.
Deepest of deep cuts.
That's what I love. Well, that's what I really like about Wheeler Yuta since the turn. Is that he's doing a load of Danielson spots. Yeah. And doing that spot in particular, I think, is tremendous.
Because it'll get people like us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be like, you bastard.
Most people Brian did that spot in WWE one time, and no one said along with it.
The one that made me laugh the most, or the one that popped me the most, is when Punk did it in the Danielson match. Because he was there here, and I'm like, oh, you have done this for a very small group of people.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That small group would love that spot.
Well, that was, not to just wax lyrical for a moment, but when they did the Danielson and Omega match, Danielson just went, and the whole crowd went, I have till 5, referee! And I've never felt my heart melt over a wrestling chant quite like that. I was like, my people! Why can't I be in this crowd?
It was a problem. My boys come home! I thought this was a very good match that had 0 heat.
Yeah.
White caught the Psycho knee with the Blade Runner for the win. I love the action. I certainly enjoyed it more than this crowd did, apparently.
Yeah. It's weird.
I will say, and there were moments where this crowd, because I was sort of people like, hey, well, the crowd showing that this is awesome. I don't think I can read that as an actual barometer of the crowd getting into the match, because that is just like, the crowds now think that they have to chant that if they've seen something. It's a Pavlovian response.
Yeah.
More than it is like what it used to be was like, oh my God, this is so cool. We have to tell how awesome this is. So I enjoyed it. The crowd weren't really there for it, though. And afterwards, he hit another Blade Runner. Mox and Co. came out, and they laid out Jay White. And then Rated FTR ran down for the save. Dax said that he's got a real problem now with the Death Riders, because they hurt Ricky Morton last week. And they want to have a Mid-South street fight on Collision. Mm-hmm. Which is going to be FTR versus Mox and Yuta.
Yeah. Not even Mox and Claudio, like the rematch of their match from Revolution last year. No, I was a bit saddened by that, as you may have seen in my edited review. Yeah, I had a number of thoughts about this segment. Again, it's Death Riders stuff, so it just has a stank on it, you know? We've been talking in recent weeks, like, the Wheeler Yuta, you smarmy little dick, ruining Jay White's life since World's End, I think is a perfectly fine story.
I've been enjoying it.
Jay White being able to get a win over one of the Death Riders and beating Wheeler Yuta, on paper, I think totally makes sense, totally works. It's a match that I think should work, but no one cares about this goddamn story.
Nice.
So even if this is like currently the C plot of the Death Riders story, it's another one of those deals where, just as I said earlier, if this is if this is the fifth best thing on a great show, you look at it and go like, what top to bottom great.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is the second best thing on the show, it's not enough.
I will say, I think this is the A plot of Dynamite.
No, not. I'm saying Jay White and Wheeler Yuta. That specific pairing behind Jeff Jarrett, behind Cope and whatever else.
Yeah, okay,
it's like it's the third tier down in the Death Riders story. You got to peel 3 layers back in that onion.
We got a recap of Timeless Toni Storm's return, and then Mariah May came out for a promo. It was a good promo, but you shouldn't really say a whole lot of anything new in the promo. And Toni Storm not being there felt like a big mistake, considering that a lot of I totally get why you put big things on Collision, because you should do. You know, the report from Sean was that Warner Brothers bought a package deal. There is no A and B show. There are 2 A shows. I don't really feel like, I think the perception of people see one of them as the A show and one of them as a B show, but the reporting from like Warner Brothers is that they see them both as the equal things. And the way to make Collision feel like a big deal is to do big angles on it. So I'm glad that they did the Toni Storm angle on Collision, because it felt like a big deal. But it was, you don't often see a lot of people talking about exciting things coming out of Collision, and they did a big exciting thing coming out of Collision.
Mm-hmm.
And they've announced that Toni Storm's going to be on Collision again this weekend, this Saturday, which I think is a positive. I think having no follow-up to it here, though, outside of Mariah May promo, I think is an error.
I do too. I certainly do. Because again, this felt like an episode of Dynamite that did not focus on its stars. And Toni Storm, every time her graphic gets put on the screen, everyone pops because she's a massive star. When you don't have a lot of those to go around, you got to do that. So, that being said, I'm curious, because obviously we haven't reviewed Collision, but this was one of those deals where I think I wanted to bring it to the Dynamite review and all of this, and just kind of get everybody's taste about it. See what everybody thought of the Toni Storm reveal. Because I have a hot take, I think, that I think this story is stupid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I don't think it's exclusive to what we've done here, but what in storyline was the point?
To do the reveal.
But what did she gain out of playing herself rookie Toni Storm?
She gave the performance of a lifetime. And everyone bought it.
Okay, but what'd she gain out of that?
She gave the performance of a lifetime. Like that's what Toni's whole thing is, that she's a starlet, and she gave her best performance ever.
You're saying things, and they're correct. However, my takeaway from that is, if you can't take that and apply it to why you should be more likely to win a wrestling match, in wrestling, I don't understand the purpose of doing it. It, to me, very much harkens back to, do you remember when they did the first Moxley-Jericho match at the first Revolution and Moxley wins the title?
Vaguely, it was a long time ago.
And they did the deal beforehand that Jericho stabbed Mox in the eye with like the keys or a spike or something, and he had an eye patch for a few weeks.
Oh yeah,
he goes into the pay-per-view with the eye patch.
I had no memory of that whatsoever. I know they've done a lot. I know they've done a lot of eye patch angles on Dynamite. I know Mox did one. I do not remember going into that match.
Well, I'll tell you, the way that match ends is they wrestle 20 minutes with Mox covering his eye with the eye patch, and then he gets to the eye and be like, "My eye is fine," and then he hits his move and he. Why would you not just wrestle the whole match with both your eyes? What did you gain from that surprise and that reveal? That, to me, is really stupid. This, to me, here, where if they did this and they did the reveal either on the go-home show or mid-match or something to be like, haha, surprise! And then you take advantage of that. She just got her ass beat thoroughly and severely, and then went, haha, I got you. Okay.
She gave the performance of a lifetime.
Everybody loves Toni Storm, and this is one of those deals where when you're hot, you can do nothing wrong, and it applies to individual people as well. where because the performance of it was spectacular, and I think the promo that Toni Storm cut is probably the best mic in hand in the ring promo that she's cut as the character of Timeless Toni Storm. I think you get away with a lot more because that makes good a lot of it. But from a storyline perspective, 0 sense to me.
But this is not Mankind revealing Cactus Jack.
No,
like, this is not that. But I get why it played out the way that it did. Like, because it's there for the reveal. Like, the whole deal was always to bring back the Timeless Toni Storm character and do the reveal that she was Timeless Toni Storm all along. She didn't have amnesia or anything like that. And she laid out in the promo, I gave the performance of a lifetime. And at the Grand Slam, Grand Slam, I'm going to rip your tits off.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I
enjoyed the segment. But
I enjoy the segment.
I don't like.
I just don't think it makes sense from a wrestling context.
Well, it's wrestling.
But it doesn't have to be, though. It can be better.
It kind of does when it's a wacky character like Timeless Toni Storm, who is an inherently wacky character.
I'm not saying don't have the wacky character. I just think that as it was laid out, I don't see a purpose for having done this other than just to do it. And it can be wrestling, but I don't see the logic in that.
Well, it's the same with the Jericho Moxley thing. It's for the reveal.
I agree. I also think that was stupid.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not saying that it's not stupid, but it's like, yeah, it's wrestling, and you did a big reveal at the end to pop the crowd. So that's what it is.
Yeah,
doesn't always have to make sense. You do it for what WWE would call the moment. And
I famously love it when they look like that.
Exactly. And in this one, we had this return, we had the moment, and that is the moment that people share around online. No one's really unpicking it to be like but this logically makes sense. Like, no, you had the moment, capital C, capital M, with the TM at the end.
It indeed, trademark, patent it, hashtag it.
I think her not being on the show was mad.
Yeah, I have no excuse for that.
A genuinely insane thing to do. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up next because the Guns got a video promo, so they're coming back soon.
This was the most normal vignette I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was like just a motivational PSA.
They're just hanging out,
lifting weights,
driving cars,
looking at pictures of them as tag champions.
Yeah,
yeah.
We then got some more recaps of Collision because this coming up Saturday on Collision is Daniel Garcia, Lee Moriarty, and Kyle O'Reilly. And they kind of showed some clips of how we've come this far because we've got Daniel Garcia and we've got Shane Taylor Promotions and we've got the Undisputed Kingdom. Then we got a video promo for the Hurt Syndicate after their win for the tag titles last week. And then we got a video promo for Takeshita, not as the Don Callis family, not as the match for Grand Slam, just specifically Konosuke Takeshita. I was like, all right, cool, okay. There's a thing in EWR where you could just do, like, for a segment, video promo for a guy.
Yeah.
That's what this was.
It's what this was.
It's a video promo for a guy. And then that led into a recap of the start of the show with Don Callis family taking out Will and Kenny. And then we got a recap of Jeff Jarrett and MJF stuff. And then we cut backstage and the Vendetta cut a promo. Because,
what is going on?
Because they have a problem with Harley Cameron and they're going to come and find her on Collision. Well, it's all promotion. Like, this. You look at these segments and all the stuff there's to accomplish something. It's the Guns are coming back. There's a match happening on Collision. We've got new tag team champions. This guy's an international star. Recaps for anyone who's missed the start of the show, and then promotion for Collision.
I agree.
Like it's all there. Like it's just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 segments back to back. Is just not the best way to do that.
It's not a sexy podcast topic to be like, fix the pacing of your shows. And it's not like SmackDown used to be where it was just, guys sent to the ring, the 10 backstage, go through 2 commercials, cut back, he's still in the ring type deal. It's not that bad, but it needs fixing. They don't do it all the time.
I was going to say, they have not done this in ages because I used to really get pissed off with this. But like,
this.
At least it's in the back half of the show. Because he used to wind me up when it was at the start of the show. Because I'm like, just get to the goddamn wrestling already.
Yeah. Some of this, I think the time could have been spent better. The recaps of what went on earlier in the show, if it plays into what goes on later, fine. But if not, I think the recap of what happened in the opener could have been spent either on, have Kenny and Will in the trainer's room and they do a promo on the Don Callis family to give you a little something, or use some of this to try and build up the Mercedes and Yuka match to just be like, this is a main event title match on paper or on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why you should care. I don't know. It was a lot of faff.
I think it's one of those things where you're not going to please everyone, because people moaning at me, years ago that they don't do enough recap packages of their own stuff, so it's, I think that damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I certainly agree with that, but I do think, there is a happy medium.
Yeah. And then the main event for the TBS Championship was Mercedes Mone versus Yuka Sakazaki. Yuka was great in this match. Actually, Mercedes was as well. I enjoyed the match very much. Mone got the knees up as Yuka went for the Magic Girl Splash, and she hit the Mone Maker for the win. Very good action, not a lot of heat, and then the show just ended.
It did just end.
It's really just ended.
Yeah.
And it was like, when it ended, I was like, huh. That certainly was an episode of television.
You know what? This episode of Dynamite could be classified as having happened.
It really did happen.
I really thought that this would all like kind of build to something at the end where maybe Mercedes gets attacked by the Vendetta because Deonna Purrazzo wants her title match and everything. And then Harley Cameron makes the save. But then, hey, you and me, I'm going to earn this title shot somehow. Maybe Harley picks up the belt and hands it to Mercedes or something. It felt like, okay, this is being put in the main event slot to capitalize on something. Nope. It was just a match. It was a solid match. I like Yuka Sakazaki a lot.
Yeah.
I like Mercedes a lot. I think that they worked well enough together.
Great.
I think Yuka doing all this and everything, I thought that was really fun.
Showed off a lot of character, the pair of them.
I like that a lot.
Very good in-ring action.
This felt like an opening match.
Yeah, when they kept saying...
Maybe went a little longer with a few more kickouts, but...
When they kept saying throughout the show, this is the main event, I was like, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. Like, I don't mind it, but it's an odd choice. And I think this is going to be a funny little episode because... Because you've got some fairly down views on this.
Yeah.
But I don't really have any down views on this episode because by the end of it, I was like, yep, that show sure did happen. And I think there'll be some people who will look at the show and be like, oh, Luke is always defending AEW. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not defending AEW. I'm so indifferent to this show. I'm not.
That's worse.
Yeah, but I was about to say, I think that is worse. I am not mad about this show or anything on this show in particular. Like, if there's something you're like really heated about, I think you are completely right to be heated about. But I've got zero like feelings about them, I guess. But I'm also not like hugely positive on the show either. I am incredibly indifferent to this episode of Dynamite. It ended, and I came in because I was in the room when you did your review, and you were super heated for it, and I was like, I thought it was fine. Well, that is my take on this. It is a shrug, and yeah, it was fine.
I don't know if you know this about me, Luke. I can't just do that. I am not a middle of the road kind of guy, and I am typically someone. I don't think every piece of media has to be the best or worst thing ever, But I agree that I think this was a middle of the road episode. But to me, my standard for AEW is like, at worst a 7 out of 10 episode. So if it is worse than that, then it's down to me. My better or worse middle point isn't 5. It's like 7. Because that's what I think. That's where I've kind of set my personal standard for where it is and all that. And I gotta say, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And that makes me more sad. It's not that I'm upset. It's that you don't care.
Well, that's it. Like, if I was doing ratings for the show, I'd have also given it 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
But my takeaway was like, yeah, it's 2 out of 5.
Yeah. I will remember nothing from this show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I forgot most of it.
5 minutes after we're done.
Once we're done with here, I will never remember this show ever happened.
Yeah.
Including this podcast. But that was the show. The poll is up. Let us know what you thought of it as we read out the rest of your Omega chats. And Rafael Garcia says, plain and simple, the show was filler. Don't get me wrong, I liked some things, but the close-up they did on YouTube didn't help me. The close-up they did on YouTube didn't help me like they thought it would do. Mercedes Yuka felt like Deonna Mercedes Martinez. I miss Keith Lee. I wonder how he is doing. Look, I'm not going to massively defend this, but I will in this section here. But this was not Deonna Purrazzo versus Mercedes Martinez.
God, you talk about a main event that I forgot happened.
Right,
oh God, I'm just getting flashbacks.
I was going to say, this was not that. This was bigger than that. But at the same time, I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah. I think it's an apt comparison, but I do think that one was worse.
EJO says, "G'day, EW. Ricochet versus AF Fox was a masterclass. In-ring skills and character work were at peak. However, I have to join the choir. D-Riders isn't working. They are the worst parts of this show. Jam that jam. P.S. Latest cutscene video was excellent. Love your work." Well, thank you very much. I very much enjoyed that video, making that video. Please do, go and watch it. I need every single one of you to open it up. Go and check it out now, because I don't get to make more of them unless people watch them. Zareth has been a member for 41 months in a row. So did anyone ask Tempest where he got his shirt from?
I don't know.
No?
It was a Christmas gift. So ask one Holly Musgrave.
So I know those words.
It's a Chaperone song.
Oh, okay. Great. Cool.
And more specifically, it is the Chaperone song that somebody, I think their Twitter name is David, but they did one of the best wrestling highlight videos packs ever that I've seen, set to this for Hangman Adam Page. It brings me to tears. Okay. I love this man, and it's a perfect song to go with it.
I think Chaperone is quite delightful.
I agree.
Even though I've only really heard that one song, and I've seen the picture of her in a luchador mask.
Yeah.
But
what more do you need?
What more do I need? It's like I think she's swell, and I'll check out the album at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zareth said this week's Dynamite looked filler when I saw the card, so I wasn't surprised. The thing is, I don't see the card because I'm not on social media anymore, so I don't know what's coming up on Dynamite unless Dynamite tells me what's coming up on it. So when the show opened and it was Will Ospreay versus Brian Cage, I was like, I had no idea this match was happening.
I think they announced it last week.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure.
The only match I don't remember what they announced for this week's show. I knew there's the Swerve and Ricochet is next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That feels about right. Well, there's the Jarrett
and Claudio was the only match I really knew was going to be happening on this show.
Yeah.
Kevin said, "I agree with Tempest on the Tony Storm segment on Collision. I think something that could have triggered the reveal would have been Mariah hitting her with the belt and bust her open to trigger the memory of Mariah's turn, and this brings back Timeless Tony." Well, that's where you're wrong, Kevin. She didn't need to be hit in the head. She was always Timeless Tony Storm. She was pretending to be Rookie Tony Storm.
For some reason.
For the reveal. For the performance.
I keep saying this thing.
Yeah, well, the reason I keep saying it is because that's why they did it.
I know, but that's not a good enough reason.
I'm not saying it's a good reason. I'm just saying that is why they did it. And Kevin adds, "I was wondering when Grand Slam was happening, so I checked on Google before watching the show, but then refrained myself because I wanted to avoid spoilers for the pay-per-view. So I watched the show and nothing was announced for the pay-per-view. In 2 weeks. Nothing. Okay. Well, you've got these two big matches. You've got your tag match and you've got the title match, the women's title match.
It's not going to be a 4-hour pay-per-view, so I don't know how many matches they will announce for this show. I don't know how long this show's going to be, really.
I think next week you get the world title match announced. Whether that is... I think it'll be Jay White.
Yeah, Mox and Jay.
Do Mox and Jay, which is what we kind of assumed it was when they announced the show originally. And then you do Copeland and Mox for Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Daquan has become a brand new member. Mayor of Painesville says, "Hello, Luke. Hello, Tempest. Hope you're doing well. Since we are certainly living through the darkest of darkest timelines, especially in Germany now, let's focus on positiveness. So can you guys do a Shota Umino sexy dance?"
Ooh, Will. Sexy dance.
I'm not doing sexy dances.
Come on, sexy dance.
I'm not paid enough to do that.
Sexy dance, Luke. Sexy dance.
Mike and Newbie here says, "Idea, if David Arquette is really in the Rumble, Ollie instantly becomes the champion. Doesn't invalidate existing steps, but this is an additional one." Like, I love that as an idea, but I have accepted the challenge for him to throw paper in a bin to win this championship. But honestly, if David Arquette is in the Rumble and Ollie Davis figured that out by putting in a URL
completely randomly,
he's the smartest man alive.
I will be utterly blown away.
Yeah.
I want to put money on it happening, but I have not found a betting website that's taking bets for just surprise appearances with David Arquette listed.
And Bushin Ryocat says, "Luke, Tempest, the chat wants to know who you think will take the title from Mone first. They say Riho, I say Serena D. What say you? And thanks for supporting Steiner Math."
I'm not... I don't get the feeling that they know right now.
Oh,
they might.
No, I don't think they might. I think they don't.
It doesn't feel like something is in the works to make it happen. You could do Chris Statlander and do like a 3rd time's the charm type deal and have another great match and she wins. You could do Willow and have that be a rubber match. I'd love to see that. Willow getting the belt back, I think would be good stuff. You could also do someone like a Queen Aminata, but they have not done anything to heat Queen Aminata up to that level yet, so I don't think so. If I had to guess, I'd probably say one of those three. At this rate, Harley Cameron's looking like the best shout.
There was a time when, during the most boring part of Roman's title run, where a lot of people were like, who is the guy to take the belt off of Roman Reigns? And people asked me, and I was like, honestly, that person has not presented themselves yet. Yeah. I will know when that person has presented themselves. I think I've got the same thing with Mercedes Moné. There are a lot of potential people. It could be, like you mentioned, a Statlander, a Willow, a Deedly-Dee, a Doodly-Doo. At this point in time, no one has actually presented themselves as the person to dethrone Mercedes Moné. So I don't know. So I'll just say Nina Samuels.
Star of the Nina Samuels show.
Let's have a little quick refresh to see if there are more chats come in, but it looks like not. So I will end the poll to see what you thought of this show. And it looks to be very much a mid result. Because, give me the results, YouTube.
No.
Give me the results, YouTube. There it is. Middle. Thumbs in the middle, 42%. Thumbs up, 38%. So actually, that's closer than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, a middle of the road show by the looks of things.
In every sense of the word, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Damn shame.
Yeah, it's a damn shame.
I need to go watch a great match or something. What should I watch? Give me one suggestion. What should I go and watch to cheer myself up?
I was about to say, this is going to make me sound like it's even worse. I mean, like, I'm just not going to watch any wrestling. I'm gonna go home and watch Great British Menu.
Well, I'm me.
It's the finals of the Northwest region this today, so I'm excited to see which one of those two is going to go through to the judges' chambers. And get into that final, into the regionals.
I'm excited for you.
I mean, I'm excited too, because I think it's been a really good week on the Great British Menu. A very good, strong start, although I do think that the brief is a weak ass for this year. But, you know, that's by the by. I'll save that for Great British Menu Talk, which is the next channel I'll be pitching for this company, which will, of course, have its own Patreon page. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this show. We will see you here this weekend, because we'll be doing live reactions in studio for the Royal Rumble. It'll be myself and Tempest here behind this desk, behind these microphones, watching the Royal Rumble with you. And then myself and Oliver Davis will be doing a review of the Royal Rumble on Sunday. And then we'll be back in studio on Tuesday to review Raw with all of the fallout of the Royal Rumble. We'll have this conversation when we get there, Tempest. But quickly, your two names for your winners, please.
Io Sky and Sami Zayn.
High as a kite. We will see you this weekend.
I need it. Give me the match. Kevin Owens winning the title too.
We'll see you. I've been Luke and DAD. That has been Tempest.
Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing. I'm just gonna keep going. Pink Pony Club.
Jam that jam. I do know that song. I've
heard
good,
that one.
Right? Yeah, I've heard that song. Yeah. Jam that jam, everyone.